Hello and welcome back to Kim's Cozy Corner. I have been working in the garden most of the day in and out of this very warm weather. So this particular video is going to focus on what am I planting next. Now that I've made tons of open space in the garden, I need to plant something else so I can keep the harvest coming. And so I removed all of the onion in a few of the beds in the garden, as well as some other things throughout the week. And now I want to make sure I fill those spaces up with something else. So I will be replanting some carrots. And so I had my best carrot harvest ever. I have a video on that. But we're going to plant some more carrots. So we're going to plant the ones that did really, really well. So we will be planting Corral, carrots, St. Valerie, and it's called Yaya. I don't have a picture of it. If I can find a picture of the Yaya carrots, I'll get that and I'll put that up for you as well. So we're going to plant carrots. We're going to re-sow some cucumbers. So I've pulled some cucumbers up over at the neighbors and they were dying. They weren't producing. It's still early enough in the season, so I have some transplants here ready to go. So we're going to get those in the ground. And I may plant some herbs. We'll just see if we have time to do that or not. But those are a few of the projects that I'm going to get to right now. So this area is cleaned out. It had onions in it. And we are going to replace those onions with carrots here. Now, I did have carrots growing at the other end of this bed. And they did amazing. So we're going to put some more carrots in here. So one of the first things I'm going to do is add some fertilizer. And my fertilizer is Trifecta Plus. Trifecta Plus is a 5-10-4. It's from M.I. Gardner. And I'm going to also add some compost. It contains lobster and crab meal, and it's an organic type compost. We're going to add some of that to add some life back to this bed. You don't have to use the type of fertilizers and compost that I use. You use whatever's available to you. A lot of people make their own compost. My neighbor has a compost bed that I can use as well. But I seem to really like this, so I might keep getting this. When it comes to my granular fertilizer, I get whatever's on sale. And then I usually get at least one thing of the Trifecta Plus every year. All right. So one of the things that I've found with the carrots, if you plant them too close, they won't grow big enough. If you don't thin them out, if they are too close, they won't grow big enough. So I am going to try to space these out. And I did a pretty good job spacing these out with the first harvest. So I'm hoping I can do a pretty good job with this harvest. My goal is to plant them so I don't have to thin them, because I know me. I know the right thing to do, and the right thing to do is to thin them. But I know that I'm not going to do it. I know I'm not going to do it. It's the right thing. And as I'm teaching people how to grow their own food, I'm telling you, you need to thin your carrots. But I know me. I know I'm not going to thin them. So I'm going to need to space them out as I put them in the ground so that I can get a good harvest. You can buy seeds that have a clay coating over them that helps you with planting so you can see your seeds. I've had some of those, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't get good germination on those things. I had them in Danvers. My Denver harvest this year was not that great, but my St. Valerie's were amazing. Some of these are still looking pretty close. I'm going to have to try to remember to thin them. I'm going to have to try. And now I'm going to cover them up with more compost. And I just lightly patted them in. I didn't like really press them hard, just lightly patting it in, just in case wind's blowing. I don't want any topsoil moving off of the carrots. So I think we're good. And I am going to do this in my other open areas. All right, I'm in the sun again, so I got to go quickly. Adding the yayas here. All right, so these yaya are pelleted seeds. I like them pelleted because I can see exactly where I'm dropping them. So I put carrots in 2 locations, and I've decided in this location here, I'm going to try to plant just a few more peas. Now I have a variety of peas that's only 60 days to harvest. They're actually a purple hull pea, and they germinated extremely well over at the neighbors. And so I am going to put them over here as well. This bed here gets more sun than any other bed. It's the warmest bed I have in the garden, and I'm hoping it's not too late. But we're going to plant some over here. So I'm adding some fertilizer and compost to this area, and then I'm just going to spread these beans out. I'm not going to put a lot of time and energy in it. I'm just going to put them in. At this point, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to cover the spot with something edible, something that I'm going to be able to use to help feed my family through the winter so that I don't have to go to the grocery store. Now, I have to be careful though, because this is a squash. It's going to get full and big. So I'm going to try to stay in this front area here with the peas. Now, these are purple hull peas, and they germinated in like 3 days at the neighbors. So we're going to go for the same thing. And again, I got to be careful because I know this squash plant right here is going to try to take over the bed. And I'm going to have to try to force it that way so that the peas have room. And as I said, I'm not going for perfection. I just want to get them in. Ooh, that's way too thick. They should be 3 inches apart at a minimum. They really could be more than that, but at a minimum 3 inches apart. And I'll put them right on top of each other. I should have put them in nice rows, but it's hot. I just want them to, if I get one plant with 1 pea on it, it's more than I had. Please don't follow this example of how to put your peas in. Follow the directions on your package. I'm in the sun, It's extremely warm out here. And I just wanted something in the ground. I can thin them when they come up to make sure I get the proper spacing. You really should space them at least 3 to 4 inches apart. And I know I didn't do that. I just spreaded them out there. I'm going to cover them up with a little more soil, but I'm going to have to come back and thin them out so they can grow properly. I tell you, you get to the back half of the year and you forget all of your techniques. You stop pulling your weeds. You don't think about that second and third and fourth planting and succession planting and getting your transplant started early. You kind of start falling behind because you got harvest coming in. You're trying to preserve that harvest and you're trying to keep it going. And you travel 50% of the time for work, which takes you away from the homestead. Start taking shortcuts. And with shortcuts, there are always consequences. But at least they're under some soil. They're in there. Most of the weeds are out. And maybe we'll get something. And if not, that's okay. Because I've had these seeds for 5 years and I'm surprised they're still germinating. But purple hull peas in this spot here, beside a huge squash that needs about 3 feet of space. But it's in there. Let's move over to the neighbors and get those cucumbers in. Okay, I am over at the neighbors. And so in my neighbor's garden, I manage all of the beds as well. So I try to plant the things over here that I know the neighbors would enjoy. And I know the neighbors enjoy cucumbers. And they have the hardest time growing cucumbers where they last throughout the season. So I make sure that I have plenty of transplants to come in to replace the plants when they start looking like this. Now this plant did produce. We got quite a few cucumbers off of it, and then it just withered away. It has spots all over it, so it's definitely diseased. And so we're removing these. And this one here, so it's a brown spot with a yellow halo around it. So I know that's disease. So we are going to remove some of these plants, but not all of them because I don't have enough transplants. Now this one's trying to grow. I might leave that one. And there's cucumbers on here that my neighbor could actually enjoy right now. So I will leave that one, but we'll definitely replace this one. Now I just fertilized over here. Ooh, when did I do that? 2 or 3 days ago, actually. So I'm not going to add any fertilizer, but I did bring some compost. I don't think we need this guy. Not at the moment anyway. So, and I never amended the soil here. So this is clay soil up under this mulch here. It's clay. It's thick, it's heavy, and this soil needs a lot of work. And I did amend probably half the beds this year, but it's going to take a few years for me to get this soil to the same condition as my garden. But for now, we're going to go with the soil that we have. We're going to just add this compost right here. This is National Pickling that we're adding to this spot here. Now this is a vine and cucumber, so I am going to have to put something here to help trellis this. And when you put your transplants in, you always put them into the same level as the transplant soil was. You don't want to go any higher than that. And so I removed the native soil, added some compost, and mulched. And we will put this back so we can get a little bit of trellising when it decides to take off. And so I have another one here. The question is, where am I going to put it? So I've decided I am not going to remove his plants because there's some very tiny cucumbers. Instead, I'm going to put these in between them. Looks like there's a hole already there. Add some compost to it. I believe my neighbor had some mums here that she transplanted out of this bed so that I could have the bed to put vegetables in it. So we kind of work together, right? So it's their bed, my vegetables, their flowers. At the end of the day, we all get to enjoy the bounty of this garden. So let's add, this is a burpless beauty. And again, this one is a vining, it's not bush. So it's gonna need trellising as well. But we will worry about the trellising later. While I'm over here, I might as well give you a real quick garden tour for my neighbor's garden. So let's just show you how the garden's doing on July 29th of 2023. July has been a very busy month. And with all of the harvesting and traveling and preserving through freezing, I haven't had a good chance to give you a garden tour. So let's take a quick peek. I had squash plants throughout the garden, and some of these squash plants are not doing so well. So didn't get anything off of those. The two squash plants that I have in here are doing great. This is a yellow zucchini and a Ford Hook zucchini in here. And we just harvested off of it. So there's no fruit to share at this time, but the plants are huge. There's some squash back there, as well as some squash over there. And these are all scallop type squash in these spaces here. And they're actually doing really well. And we have enjoyed some of the fruits from these plants. The last place that I have squash is right here in this bed here. And the plants are still small, but they look very healthy. So hopefully they will go ahead and produce here shortly. I will try to take these one bed at a time. This is the bed of cucumbers that we just worked on. And there's mostly bush cucumbers in here, but on the very back are some vining cucumbers, mostly pickling. And I have grabbed tons and tons of cucumbers off of this plant here, and I've made some wonderful dill pickles to preserve for next year. This bed here has tomatoes on it, and there's a combination of grape tomatoes, or cherry tomatoes, I should say, as well as slicers. And we've been picking tomatoes out of this bed now for about, I don't know, 2 weeks, and the harvest is starting to come in. Most of these tomatoes are not huge beefsteak type tomatoes, but there are a few, and they are producing very well. These tomatoes are, I don't know, maybe a week behind the bed I just showed you, but there are tomatoes everywhere. We have harvested a few off of here, and we are really waiting on these true black brandywines to ripen up and enjoy. This bed right beside it has some suckers. So I took the suckers off of a few plants and just stuck them in the ground, and they're healthy. They're doing really well. Here's another one that was a sucker right here with the frosty leaves on it, and it's doing really well also. The bush steaks are starting to really take off and put some fruit on. I think I've harvested 2 or 3 off of there so far this year, and there's another one that's just a day or so away. In this bed here, I do have a few tomato plants, and these tomato plants are dwarf tomato plants. It's the same type of tomato plant that I have growing in my tower, in my GreenStalk tower, but they seem to be doing better in the raised beds. This is a whole nother bed of dwarf tomatoes here. And I've been harvesting these tomatoes all week long. I probably have harvested, I don't know, many, many pounds from here. And these are pretty loaded. And there's some really nice sized ones in here too. Don't know if you can see them or not, but they're in there. Like, look at the size of that tomato right there. That's going to be a really, really nice tomato. And that's a really nice one as well. In this bed, I recently pulled up all of my green beans that I had growing here, and I just threw some purple whole peas into this bed and threw some fertilizer and a little bit of compost on top. And 3 days later, they're coming up like crazy. And these seeds are probably every bit 3 to 5 years old. Well, well, looky here. I know nothing about this plant whatsoever. I didn't know it was here, but it's a tomato plant and it's blooming. And this is the first I'm seeing of this tomato plant. So we will have tomatoes on that plant as well. Just to the side of it here, we have some onion that's growing nicely. They're starting to bulb up pretty good too. And next to the onion is so much celery. I've harvested so much celery. I told the neighbor, I'm like, hey, do you like celery? Please start eating celery. And he was not aware that this plant was even celery. And he loves fresh eating of celery. So I'm hoping they will start enjoying this very soon. In this bed here, I have more tomato suckers that I've planted that are doing really well. And in the back are yummies. I believe these are red or either orange yummies. It's a type of pepper. And these seeds were 10 years old. My neighbor saved seeds from 10 years ago. And I started those seeds indoors and planted them in this space here. And they did have a slow start, but I added some fertilizer and added some additional compost and potting soil. And all of a sudden they woke up. They're thick, they're full, and they're looking great. Now, a yummy is a sweet pepper. It's a snacking pepper, if you've never heard of it. I don't have a pack of it or anything, but they come in red, orange, and I believe yellow in color, and they're really, really sweet. Well, I think I've been able to share with you some planting of seeds, planting of some purple whole peas, as well as transplanting some cucumbers in the garden today. Thank you for coming with me today as I shared with you these tasks. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. These are the videos that I'll keep coming for you. And until next time, I'll see you back here real soon. Bye.